In the quiet town of Oak Ridge, nestled in the Appalachian foothills, life moved at a slower pace. It was the kind of place where everyone knew each other's names and secrets were hard to keep. But even in such a close-knit community, some secrets ran deeper than anyone could imagine. The town was thrust into a nightmare one early summer evening when Emily Carter, the pregnant wife of police officer John Carter, vanished without a trace. Emily was well known in Oak Ridge, a woman whose warm smile and gentle nature had endeared her to everyone. At 28, she was a dedicated elementary school teacher beloved by her students and colleagues alike. Her marriage to John, who had recently been promoted to detective, was seen as one of the town's most stable. They were expecting their first child, a baby boy, in just a few short weeks. But beneath the surface of their seemingly idyllic life, a web of betrayal, lies, and dark desires was slowly unraveling. John Carter was a respected figure in the community. Having served on the Oak Ridge police force for nearly a decade, he had built a reputation as a hard-working and principled officer. However, in the months leading up to Emily's disappearance, his behavior had begun to change. He became distant and withdrawn, often working late hours and spending less time at home. To the outside world, he was simply a man burdened by the pressures of his job and the impending responsibilities of fatherhood. But those closest to him knew something was wrong. Emily had confided in her closest friend, Sarah Morgan, that she feared John was having an affair. She had noticed the subtle changes, the unexplained absences, the secretive phone calls, and the unfamiliar scent of perfume on his clothes. Emily was devastated, but she kept her suspicions to herself, not wanting to confront John without proof. She focused instead on preparing for the arrival of their baby, hoping that whatever was troubling her husband would pass. But then Emily disappeared. It was John who reported her missing. He called the station in a panic, his voice trembling as he told them that he had come home from work to find the house empty. Emily's car was still in the driveway, her purse and keys were on the kitchen counter, but there was no sign of her. John's colleagues, concerned for their friend and fellow officer, launched an immediate search. They canvassed the area, questioned neighbors, and scoured the nearby woods, but there was no trace of Emily. As the days turned into weeks, the sense of dread in Oak Ridge grew. The local media covered the story extensively, turning the disappearance into a statewide concern. Volunteers from neighboring towns joined the search, combing through the dense forests and abandoned buildings. The entire town was on edge, and as the investigation dragged on with no leads, rumors began to circulate. People whispered about John's affair, about how Emily had seemed distracted and anxious in the weeks before she vanished. Some even speculated that she had run away, unable to bear the thought of raising a child in a broken marriage. But those closest to Emily knew she would never leave willingly, especially not with a baby on the way. Her family was adamant that something terrible had happened to her, and as the investigation deepened, so too did the suspicions surrounding John Carter. Detective Sarah Thompson, a seasoned investigator from the state police, was brought in to assist with the case. She quickly realized that something about John's story didn't add up. He was too composed, too rehearsed in his answers. While he played the part of the grieving husband, Thompson couldn't shake the feeling that he was hiding something. She began digging into his past, interviewing his colleagues, and looking for any signs of trouble in his marriage. It didn't take long for her to uncover the affair. John had been seeing another woman, a local waitress named Lisa Myers, for nearly 6 months. The affair had been intense, passionate, and reckless. Lisa, unaware of the extent of John's deception, believed that he was planning to leave Emily for her. She was devastated when she found out that Emily was pregnant, and that John had no intention of leaving his wife. Thompson confronted John with this information, but he denied everything, insisting that his affair had nothing to do with Emily's disappearance. He claimed that he had ended things with Lisa weeks before Emily went missing, and that he was committed to making his marriage work. But Thompson wasn't convinced. She began to scrutinize John's every move, looking for any inconsistencies in his story. The breakthrough came when Lisa Myers agreed to speak with the police. Heartbroken and feeling betrayed, she revealed that John had become increasingly erratic in the weeks leading up to Emily's disappearance. He had talked about feeling trapped, about how the baby would change everything, and how he wished he could just escape. Lisa had brushed off these comments as the frustrations of a man under pressure, but in light of Emily's disappearance, they took on a more sinister tone. Thompson pressed further, uncovering more details about John's behavior. He had started drinking heavily, lashing out at colleagues, and even confiding in a close friend that he was terrified of becoming a father. The more Thompson learned, the more convinced she became that John was involved in his wife's disappearance. But without a body or any direct evidence, she couldn't make an arrest. The investigation took a chilling turn when a group of volunteers searching a remote area outside of town stumbled upon an abandoned mine shaft. The shaft had been sealed for years, a relic of the town's mining past, but someone had recently broken through the barrier. The searchers, driven by a hunch, decided to investigate. Inside the shaft, they found Emily. Her body was badly decomposed, but it was clear that she had been murdered. She was still wearing the clothes she had last been seen in, and the forensic team quickly determined that she had been strangled before being dumped in the mine shaft. The discovery shocked the town to its core and sent the investigation into overdrive. Detective Thompson immediately focused her attention on John. The discovery of Emily's body gave her the leverage she needed to push him harder. She confronted him with the evidence, laying out the timeline and the inconsistencies in his story. But John remained defiant, refusing to admit any involvement in his wife's death. It was a piece of evidence found near Emily's body that finally broke the case open. A gold bracelet engraved with the initials JC was found near the crime scene. It was a bracelet that John had given Emily as a gift on their wedding anniversary. He claimed it had been lost months ago, but Thompson knew better. She had seen a photo of Emily wearing it just a few weeks before she disappeared. When confronted with this damning evidence, John's facade began to crumble. He broke down in tears, confessing to the affair, but still denying any involvement in Emily's murder. He claimed that he had no idea how the bracelet ended up near the mine shaft and that he was being framed. But Thompson wasn't buying it. She knew that John had motive opportunity, and now with the discovery of the bracelet, the means to commit the crime. She pushed him harder, using every tactic she knew to break him. And finally, after hours of relentless questioning, John Carter confessed. He admitted to killing Emily in a fit of rage after she confronted him about the affair. He had panicked, strangling her before realizing the full extent of what he had done. In a desperate attempt to cover up the crime, he had driven her body out to the abandoned mine shaft and dumped it, hoping that it would never be found. The town of Oak Ridge was stunned by the revelation. The man they had trusted to protect them had turned out to be a cold-blooded killer. John was arrested and charged with first-degree murder, and the case quickly became a media sensation. The trial was swift, and John was convicted and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Emily's family was left to pick up the pieces, their lives forever shattered by the betrayal and violence that had taken her from them. The town mourned the loss of one of their own, but they also struggled to come to terms with the darkness that had lurked beneath the surface of their seemingly perfect community. And Detective Sarah Thompson, though satisfied with the outcome, couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to the story. She continued to dig, determined to uncover every last secret that had led to Emily's tragic death. But for the people of Oak Ridge, the nightmare was over, and they were left to grapple with the aftermath of a crime that had torn their town apart. The trial of John Carter had ended, and justice had been served. But for Detective Sarah Thompson, there were still unanswered questions. As she delved deeper into the investigation, she uncovered a web of deceit and betrayal that extended far beyond John's affair. It was a web that would reveal the true extent of the darkness that had consumed the town of Oak Ridge. In the weeks following John's conviction, Thompson continued to sift through the evidence, re-interviewing witnesses, and examining every detail of the case. She was convinced that John hadn't acted alone, that someone else had helped him cover up the crime. Her suspicions were further fueled when she discovered a series of anonymous letters sent to the Oak Ridge Police Department in the weeks leading up to Emily's disappearance. The letters were written in a shaky hand, warning that Emily's life was in danger. They spoke of secrets, lies, and a plan to make Emily disappear. At first, the letters had been dismissed as the ramblings of a disturbed individual, but in light of recent events, Thompson believed they held the key to uncovering the full truth. She began to investigate the origins of the letters, tracing them back to a small, isolated cabin on the outskirts of town. The cabin belonged to an elderly man named Henry Waller, a reclusive figure who had lived in Oak Ridge for decades. Waller was known for his eccentricities, but he had never been in trouble with the law. Thompson paid him a visit, hoping to learn more about the letters. Waller was initially reluctant to speak, but as Thompson pressed him, he revealed a chilling story. He had known John Carter for years, having worked with him on several cases during his time on the police force. Waller claimed that John had come to him months before Emily's disappearance, seeking advice on how to disappear someone. At the time, Waller had dismissed it as a dark joke, but when Emily went missing, he realized the seriousness of John's intentions. Waller had written the letters in an attempt to warn the police, but his fear of John had kept him from coming forward directly. He knew too much about the inner workings of the Oak Ridge Police Department, and he feared that John's connections would make it impossible for him to stay safe. Waller's confession added a new layer of complexity to the case and raised even more questions about John's true motives. Thompson, determined to uncover the full truth, began to dig into Waller's past. She discovered that he had once been a well-respected detective in a nearby town, but his career had ended in disgrace after a botched investigation led to the wrongful conviction of an innocent man. Waller had retreated to Oak Ridge, where he lived a quiet, solitary life, but his knowledge of police procedures and his connection to John made him a person of interest in the case. As Thompson continued to investigate, she uncovered more disturbing details about John's life. She learned that his relationship with Lisa Myers had been far more volatile than anyone had realized. Lisa had become increasingly demanding, pressuring John to leave Emily and start a new life with her. When he refused, their relationship had spiraled out of control, culminating in a violent confrontation just days before Emily's murder. Lisa had gone to the police after Emily's disappearance, claiming that John had threatened her. But her allegations had been dismissed, and she had been left to fend for herself. Desperate and afraid, Lisa had fled Oak Ridge, disappearing without a trace. Thompson was determined to find her, believing that Lisa held the key to understanding what had really happened on the night Emily was murdered. With the help of her colleagues, Thompson tracked Lisa to a small town several hours away. Lisa was living under a new identity, working as a waitress in a rundown diner. When Thompson approached her, Lisa was initially reluctant to talk, but she eventually agreed to tell her story. Lisa revealed that she had been in love with John, but their relationship had become toxic and abusive. John had promised to leave Emily, but as the due date for the baby approached, he grew more distant and volatile. Lisa had tried to break things off, but John refused to let her go. She was terrified of what he might do, and when Emily went missing, she feared that she would be next. Lisa's account painted a picture of a man consumed by anger and desperation, willing to do whatever it took to protect his secrets. But there was one detail that caught Thompson's attention. Lisa claimed that John had a partner, someone who had helped him plan and execute the murder. Thompson pressed Lisa for more information, but she was adamant that she didn't know who the partner was. She had only overheard snippets of conversations, but she was certain that John hadn't acted alone. Thompson's mind raced as she considered the possibilities. If John had a partner, then there was still someone out there who knew the full truth. Thompson returned to Oak Ridge more determined than ever to find the missing pieces of the puzzle. She revisited old evidence, re-interviewed witnesses, and scrutinized every detail of the case. Her investigation led her to a surprising conclusion. John's partner was someone within the Oak Ridge Police Department. Thompson's suspicions were confirmed when she uncovered a series of encrypted messages sent from John's phone to an unknown number on the night of Emily's murder. With the help of a forensic expert, Thompson was able to trace the number to Officer Nick Harris, one of John's closest colleagues. Harris was a well-respected officer known for his dedication and loyalty. He had been one of the first to join the search for Emily, and he had played a key role in the investigation. But as Thompson dug deeper, she discovered that Harris had a darker side. He had a history of violent behavior, and he had been involved in several questionable incidents during his time on the force. Thompson confronted Harris with the evidence, but he denied any involvement in Emily's murder. However, his alibi for the night of the crime was shaky, and his phone records placed him near the mine shaft at the time Emily's body was dumped. As Thompson pressed him, Harris began to crack, revealing a deep-seated resentment towards John and a twisted sense of loyalty that had driven him to help cover up the murder. Harris confessed that he had helped John dispose of Emily's body, believing that he was protecting a fellow officer and friend. But as the investigation unfolded, Harris realized that he had made a terrible mistake. He had been drawn into John's web of lies and deceit, and now he was facing the consequences. Thompson's relentless pursuit of the truth led to Harris' arrest, and he was charged with accessory to murder and obstruction of justice. The trial that followed was even more sensational than John's, as the full extent of the corruption within the Oak Ridge Police Department was exposed. In the end, both John and Harris were held accountable for their crimes, but the damage to Oak Ridge was irreparable. The town was left to grapple with the betrayal of those who were supposed to protect them, and the scars of Emily's tragic death would never fully heal. For Detective Sarah Thompson, the case was a grim reminder of the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface of even the most idyllic communities. She had uncovered the truth, but it had come at a great cost. The secrets of Oak Ridge had been laid bare, and the town would never be the same. The tragic murder of Emily Carter was a stark reminder that even in the most close-knit communities, secrets and betrayals can fester beneath the surface. The investigation into her death revealed not only the dark side of human nature, but also the dangers of unchecked power and loyalty. Detective Sarah Thompson's relentless pursuit of the truth brought justice for Emily, but it also exposed the deep-rooted corruption within the Oak Ridge Police Department. In the end, the town of Oak Ridge was left to pick up the pieces of a shattered community. The story of Emily Carter's murder serves as a cautionary tale, a reminder that no one is immune to the darkness that can lie within. For Detective Thompson, the case would remain with her forever, a haunting reminder of the fragility of life and the importance of seeking the truth no matter the cost.